A few weeks ago, I received an excellent question in my comment section, and I don't know that anyone has ever asked me this before on my channel. So I was very intrigued when I saw the question, and instead of answering it thoroughly in the comment section, I decided to make a video answering it and sharing my thoughts. This was the question I received. How do I know if I know already who I am? I know I am an INFJ since 2 years. I watched a lot of videos till then. I know now why I thought I am different and why nobody understands me or nobody tries to understand me asking deeper questions. That's why it always seemed like I am alone, although I wasn't. Does it mean that I now know who I am? Or how do you other INFJs define the finishing line when we can finally enjoy every aspect of our personality? I speak a lot on this channel about one of the most important things we will do in life. It's finding out who we are, because that's the key to purpose for us. Your life makes more sense when you know who you are. The first thing I would say to answer this question is that it's definitely a defining moment when you realize who you are. There is this buildup inside of us when we're heading towards that moment. Nothing feels as satisfying as it did before. There could be doubt and anxiety. There's something propelling you forward. You're not comfortable in the life you have. Everything you are doing seems so unsatisfactory. So there's this inner work that starts to begin. It kind of happens on the back burner. It's not something you can put into words. When you realize it, when you are finally ready, or something tells you you're ready to know who you are, to see who you are, to understand yourself, that's the defining moment. It seems like it happens so quickly. It's like once it happens, once you really look into the mirror for the first time honestly and wonder who that person is looking back at you and are serious about it, everything falls like the proverbial stack of dominoes. It happens so fast. And to our own eye, it seems kind of startling in a way how it happens so quickly. But I don't think it's a quick thing. I think it's really like a slow build up to that point. We just aren't aware of it in a way. When it does happen, it's kind of alarming how fast your eyes open. I referenced this in my first video. When you finally turn your mirror around and you start to study yourself with the intensity you have studied others your whole life, that's the defining moment. It's a defining moment because it's so revelatory. Everything joins up. You can look back and see why. If you know why no one understands you, this is probably a signal. You might not be there just yet, but you're almost there. This is what I see on my channel all the time. People who are standing at that defining moment, who have just arrived there and are getting ready. I can see it in the questions. There's this lead up that happens, and you tend to know what you're seeking out and where to look for it. And I see people who are definitely looking for this. So, how do you define the finishing line? I don't see it as a finishing line. I don't see it as a race. The defining moment to me is more about a door to another life. It's sort of like the door of discovery. Once you step through, your life will be forever different. It's not a finishing line as much as it is about the beginning of something different for you. It's kind of like the death of your old self, because once you are aware of who you are, you can't keep living in delusion. You can't keep living the way you used to live. You won't get satisfaction in it anymore. In fact, if you try, you'll just get anxiety from it. You will have anxiety from it, trying to return to that former life. Your eyes have been opened, and once they are open, you can't go back to living with your eyes closed. It's not like you disassociate from the other life or that person that you were. It's played a role in who you are, but from now on, you have to live in the light of knowing who you are, and that changes everything. It's just the beginning. You're at the beginning of it, not the end. That's why I say it's not a finishing line, although in a way, it's the finish of the old you, the old me, the one who didn't know herself. When I was younger, I always remember hearing couples who were very much in love say about the other, I discover something new about the other person all the time. It's kind of like you're entering a relationship with yourself in a way. You've never been in a relationship with yourself. You've been oblivious to this person whose body you occupy. You've been looking at this person through a haze. You sort of have an idea about this person, but when you have that defining moment, it's like meeting yourself for the first time. Like that couple who discovers something new about the other all the time, that's what's going to happen with you. You are going to discover things about who you are. For me, it's being able to finally be able to observe my own process in the same way as I can observe it in other people. You have interactions with people your whole life and you don't understand it. That's the obliviousness. Why do I have this way with people? Why are people drawn to me, etc.? But when you discover and meet yourself, you realize why this has been the case with you. But that's just the beginning, the starting point. As you meet yourself more, you're going to learn more and more about yourself, and then you'll get to the point where you can observe yourself from this sort of detached way. For instance, when I first learned about type, and I realized there were other people like me in the world, I thought, I probably have never met anyone like me. But again, I don't think I would have known because I didn't know myself. So how would I see myself in someone else? I wouldn't have recognized myself in someone else because I didn't know who I was. I hadn't met her yet. I'm sure I met other INFJs in my life, but I never made the connection for that very reason. So when I discovered other INFJs and watched them and was trying to type people, I was having trouble typing them. I recognized a pattern. I had a feel for other types. I knew what ISFP felt like, or ESTJ, or whatever type it was. But when I would look at other people who were INFJ types, I would be listening to what they were saying, and I was confused because I didn't have a feel for what type they were. But I was very interested in what they were saying. So it took me a while to realize, oh, duh, these are INFJs. I was confused because I didn't see the similarity there, but I was getting caught up in what they were saying. Then I realized, oh, it's because I think the same. It's almost like I can follow their thought process, but I'm not quite sure what they're going to say because they aren't me, even though I can make predictions. So I progressed from that to when I could finally see what INFJ looked like, or should I say felt like, because I know what I feel like. Therefore, I know what another INFJ feels like. And now I've gotten to the point where I can observe other people of our type and observe their process sort of more in a detached manner. I don't have to listen to them as much anymore to figure out that it's another INFJ. And that's kind of how it is with myself. I'm able to observe my own process now. I was never able to do that before. I can actually see now why I do things. In the past, when I was out and about with people, I lost myself in the ocean of people. Now I'm more aware of myself and how I interact with people, and it's strange because I can almost observe myself in real time, which is very different for me. This doesn't always happen, of course, but it can. It depends on the person I'm interacting with or the intensity of the situation I'm experiencing. This is what I liken it to. In teaching, if I was teaching a lesson to a higher level group of students, I had to really pay attention to how I presented the material. I wasn't thinking about teaching. I couldn't because of the higher level of subject matter. But when I taught kindergartners, like 5-year-olds, the lesson moved at such a slow pace, not physically because I had to change activities constantly, but more on a slower mental level, a lower level, that I could teach the kids and be in my head at the same time. I could teach the kids and think about other things. I could think about my teaching while I was teaching them, whereas I couldn't do that with the upper level kids. And this is how it is with my people interactions. It depends on the person. Honestly, the less interesting the person is to me, the more I can observe how I act in the situation. But the more interesting the other person is, the greater the difficulty in observing my reaction. It takes a lot within me to stay with the other person, either in the exchange of ideas. I don't know, there's something about it that elevates the connection or elevates the experience with the other person to such a higher level that I'm not able to observe myself as much. When you cross that threshold and you meet yourself, you're just getting to know yourself. It's going to take time. It's a process. Even though I said it happens quickly, I think it's more that you are aware of yourself now. And a lot of things will click into place. Why I'm different, why I felt misunderstood, all these sorts of things we have trouble with. But when you cross that threshold and meet yourself, you have to understand it's going to take time to get to know yourself. It's like a relationship, and it won't happen overnight. You're going to notice deeper levels as you go along in different situations. You start to see interesting things about yourself, or you're more aware of these parts of yourself that you were unaware of before. They slowly reveal themselves to you, not necessarily because you're incapable at the beginning of understanding, but just because you haven't experienced a particular situation with yourself yet. When I talked about the couple, maybe they learned something new about the other person just because it's the first time they're in a certain experience together. And that's how it is with yourself. You're not going to learn a particular bit about yourself until you encounter a certain experience which teaches you a specific thing about yourself. It will give you a chance to see something about yourself or learn something about yourself. And if it's something you've experienced in the past, it might trigger a remembrance of how you handled it and why or why not you should handle it in a similar way again. And with every experience you encounter, in this heightened state of awareness, that's when you will learn something else about yourself. Something else will click. So even after meeting yourself, you still need to have experiences. You need the experiences so you can have the experience, right? You won't be able to learn a particular thing about yourself unless you're in a certain experience or you've experienced that particular situation in the past. It's the feeling of being in the experience that helps to mold the thought. It's very helpful to find people of our type to study. It helps a great deal. I know it's difficult to find one in real life, but maybe find some to study online. Studying others of our type will help you to see things about yourself. You are observing your process, in other words, how your brain works, because that's what type is. Someone of your type has a brain which functions in a similar way to you. How do they process and receive information? You can learn even though you are not the same people. Remember, you don't have the same personality, you have the same type, but you can still learn. I've watched other INFJs online, and it's kind of scary how I can sort of crawl into their heads. I feel like I'm actually sitting there myself. When the interviewer asks the question, I almost know how that INFJ will respond. It's interesting to see how they handle certain situations. You can watch someone else with your type and see how they handle situations, and it might trigger something in you, another level of awareness you can write about, think about, put in the slow cooker for later. And then still getting out there and experiencing things in the world. I think you will find, though, once you discover who you are, your desire to interact with the world will be less. You had to interact with the world to discover yourself. But as you grow older, the need for this is less and less. You will want your interactions with the world to be more meaningful, and you won't have time for all the general interactions you used to make time for. The purposeful and deliberate interactions will be what holds more value for you. Also, you don't need all the experiences you felt driven to get when you were younger. Partly because I experienced a lot of people and have all that rich material to draw upon now, but also because I know the pitfalls that come with getting myself too involved in other people's lives. I still find it very difficult. Even though I know who I am, I know my weaknesses. I know that darn FE can still get me into trouble. I can easily get tangled up in someone else's life that I don't want to get tangled up in, and it can happen so quickly for me, which makes it difficult for me to disengage. The way to handle it now is not to do that, not to be so quick to pull the trigger. Now I like to study people more covertly. than I did overtly in the past. I would be very interested in people, and that's how I got myself into so much trouble. Now, I find myself desiring human interactions much less. Again, now, it's more about meaningful interactions than many interactions. Quality over quantity. When you meet yourself, you start learning about who you really are. And that's when you start living deliberately.